Well. How did we get here?
You know, we ask ourselves that every time, and it speaks to the fact that us getting together every week to do this is a feat of nature.
It's come to this. We are actually at episode 10, and it's our final episode of season 1. We've done 16 of these.
I think this is the 16th one. I don't know what it's not an episode because we call them.
Here's the thing. How the hell could we have 16 of something and then say it's 10? I think it proves the reason we're in theater is because we're not good at math.
Oh, I'm terrible at math. It's my worst subject.
Really? 16 doesn't... Never mind. I'm not going to get into it. What I will get into is this. We promise we will return a couple of weeks. What do you think? I like the way you're very cavalier about it.
2-3 weeks.
2-3 weeks. We're going to take a little break. And so we are calling the episode 10 the final episode of season 1 of It's Not a Meisner Podcast. What we thought we would do in this episode is answer some questions and comments. Being the last episode, it's not a bad idea to kind of review.
Well, you actually brought it up that at the end of a semester, you would do that to your class. Right?
I would, yeah. At the end of a semester, I would look at my students and say, tell me something you know. And they'd be like, what? And I go, well, look in your notebook and tell me something you now know that you didn't know before we started. So we've actually received some nice feedback. We're very, very, I can say that I'm a bit overwhelmed that people are listening to us. I'm funny about it, but I really do think it's kind of wonderful that people are in fact listening to us. And when they comment, it means a lot to us because I kind of want it. We joke that I hate technology and I don't understand it and I'm not good at it. And Carson runs the entire operation here. God bless him. But I have, if I ever try to go on a site or something, it asks for my passport and I'm like, I'm out.
Your passport?
Password.
Oh, he said
my passport. I give it to him. My password, unfortunately, I don't. I'm always like, I'm supposed to remember my password from the last time I was on this site 5 years ago. Then I'm done. So I don't know anything because I'm not on the internet. That's why
you don't know anything.
That's why I'm stupid.
To know anything means you must live in this.
All knowledge exists on the internet, and I don't understand. I don't know anything.
And we're putting knowledge on the internet.
We're putting knowledge on the internet. So I did want to do the podcast because even though I hate technology, I'm like, wait a minute, we're on technology. Because I did want this kind of discourse. I didn't want us to be like, we are as Carson would say, we are the gatekeepers, right? Of all things good about acting and listen to us and we know. I'm here to say we don't. Mm-hmm. It changes day to day. And the fact that people have written to us, I like it because it means it's a discourse. It's not just us saying stuff.
Yeah.
So today's episode is Carson and I responding to comments and questions and essentially feedback that we've got.
Yeah.
So we'll do that when we come back. It should not be acting training. It should be actor training.
Am I a good actor?
Like me doing... It's not a Meisner podcast. Okay, so... One thing I did not think would happen is, or it didn't occur to me, and it should have, is that we had teachers who listened to us. And so some of the questions and comments we're going to get to today come from acting teachers. I thought we would have actors listening to us, and in fact, we do. We have quite a few actors who have responded to us. And so we're going to respond right now to, I think, two actors. I know one of them is Adam Bush. Is that correct?
I think so.
Adam Bush has written to us with a wonderful comment. This is the kind of stuff I love. That he is saying that he likes our podcast and he likes what we say, and then he has his own opinion. Adam Bush, you can look him up, you guys. He's an actor. He's a working actor. He's the kind of actor that we love. Meaning, is he world famous? No. Does he work at his craft? Yeah. working actor.
Yeah.
And I love that he listens to us. I love that there are other working actors out there. Like every now and then, if you scroll through who listens to us, they're actors who are out there doing the job. So we're not talking to air. That's what I like. We're not out there talking to. We don't hear an echo coming back. We hear people responding to it.
Yeah, absolutely. From
Actually do this
across the ocean too.
even from across the ocean. We saw from people in Ireland and the UK, London, and et cetera, et cetera. But so, Carson, do you want to read what Adam?
Yeah, I will. And first, we're going to shortly play a reel that we posted on Instagram from episode 8, part 1, I believe, Always Be Doing. And this is what Adam was responding to. So here's that soundbite.
Talent is something that you either have or you don't. You can't control it. You can't ride your talent if you have it. I don't want actors showing up going, well, I'm very talented and I'll just ride my talent and I'll take my chances. And if you're not trained, what are you doing? Like hoping for that hand of God to touch you before you go out on stage? You're hoping for some sort of divine inspiration? Every night you hear your cue and you go, I hope the hand of God touches me when I go out and say my first line. No, man, you have to be trained.
Okay, so Adam wrote in response to what you just heard, he said, quote, love the podcast and agree with your point. One needs training, a method, a process to rely on. The hard work is unavoidable. However, if talent comes from God and isn't teachable, it makes sense that people expect that same hand to get them through. You told them that's where their talent comes from. It's contradictory to push that idea and then blame them for relying on it. It also tells people with unrealized potential there's no point in trying. If they don't see it themselves, it must not be accessible.
Yeah, I really love both of those comments. Especially the second one. Because I would never want to give the impression that I think that somebody who has unrealized potential should quit. How do they know? There are plenty of talented people out there. They don't know that they have the talent. In fact, that's literally what I do for a living and used to do for a living, especially. I'm retired now, but I still do this on Zoom and sometimes in person. Take a person who has potential and speak to them in a way to help them, first of all, recognize that they do, in fact, have this potential, but also to give them tools to unlock it, right? People will contact me quite a bit about self-tapes, help me with this self-tape or help me with this audition. And, my job is to see where they're blocking themselves and where they're stopping themselves and helping them to recognize their potential. So to Adam, I would say 100%, I love that. I love that he is saying, apart from the fact that there are people who do this for a living, there are also people who have every right to chase their talent and possibly pull it out. And I don't want to say I've been surprised because I always thought it. But we as a faculty have been surprised when somebody's talent would pop. And I wasn't surprised because I would always see the talent in them and say to the rest of the faculty, you got to give this person a little time. Not everybody just pops on the first day. So it could take a little bit of time and then suddenly they crack a code or they turn a corner. And some of them have turned out to be our better actors, who work for a living, but you never would have known it, let's say, in their first year of training. So I hope that addresses the second point that Adam had. But the first point is, I do want to say this, that soundbite is a little deceptive because it's a nice little teaser for me to say either you have talent or you don't, right? It's a fun sort of blanket statement that people can argue with. But if you look back at the original episode that it comes from, I hope I was a little bit more clear about it. What I was saying was, well, what I had said was, first of all, everybody is born with the potential. Every child has the talent that we use as actors, directors, and playwrights, which is the capacity to let the external world happen to them, the sensual world you take in through the 5 senses. and you let it happen to you. I wish we could play on our Instagram feed. I don't know if a YouTube clip has I don't know if it's in the public domain, if it's just a person rather than say a television show. There's that extraordinary clip of that woman singing to her child.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
If we could post that, I would love to.
Yeah.
If not, then I'm telling people to go look it up. There is a woman who is singing to her daughter who must be, Jesus, 6 or 7 months old, like not even a year. The woman is an extraordinary singer. So first you see this little child just smiling up at its mom. Then the woman, because she's such a great singer, she is singing from her soul. That it starts to feel like, I don't know, some kind of work, some Appalachian miner who works in a mine kind of, like the depths of the soul. And this 7-month-old child just starts to cry because she feels the depth of it. Now, what the 7-month-old child is not going, yes, I relate to the Appalachian coal miner's plight. Of course not. The kid is living, it's universal. It flows through the kid. Will just sent me about a week ago the funniest prank that a mom plays on her daughter. The kid's probably about 6 or 7 years old. And the mom asks the kid to bring her toilet paper. And when the kid hands the toilet paper to the mom, as a prank, rubs a little brown substance, probably chocolate or something, on the kid's hand. And the kid goes, well, what's that? And the mom goes, oh, I'm so sorry, it's poop. The kid goes through 12 different iterations. First, she's kind of laughing in disbelief, and then she's laughing really hysterically. Then she bursts into tears like, how could you, what, poop? I mean, 7 years old, what that kid goes through is essentially what every actor has in them. When I say you either have talent or you don't, what I mean is you either held on to that and kept going from child to adult with your capacity for imagination, for storytelling, for sharing of yourself, of your inner self. You don't hope, like that 7-year-old kid didn't go, there's poop on my hand and I'm very embarrassed and filled with shame. I'm going to run out of the room and hide. That kid let herself live through the whole experience of it. So what I'm saying is that every child has some capacity to allow experience to happen to them in differing degrees. Now, some kids, their talent it all comes out in their play. And some kids, their talent runs toward, you start to see it. They're the ones that you know, in their play, instead of playing with puppets, or playing pretend of like, when I was a kid, it was perfectly acceptable for me and my male friends to go out and pick up a stick and treat it like a machine gun and just run around going, like, because we were raised on World War II movies where the army people were heroes. This was before Vietnam. So when we played hard and for real. We were like, no, I'm shot, I'm dead. You lay on the ground because you're dead. You don't pop back up again. But other people, their talent would lean toward other things, like Lincoln Logs, or when I was a kid, there was a toy called Erector Set. I don't think this exists anymore, but it was called Erector Set. It literally was a bunch of metal and screws and stuff, and you would build things. So you had kids building like cranes and buildings and all. Those were the kids that had a talent toward engineering or architecture or whatever. I have an older brother who's a genius. I mean, whether he's literally a genius or not, I bet if they tested him, he is. But he's a kind of genius. When we were kids, that's his talent. He would play, but the play would become building things. And he literally, when we were kids, we would build a fort, right? So we would 3 sticks and a blanket or something. My brother, this motherfucker, 12 years old, built, I'm not kidding you, a 4-story fort.
Wow.
Of made from 2x4s and plywood. And it was structurally sound because my father would not have let him build it. We hung out in this fort. It was literally 4 stories high. You'd go into a room, and then the ceiling had a trapdoor on it. You would open it, step into the next level. He's a builder for a living now. He's a retired contractor. And what he does now is he teaches building to high school kids, right? So that's where his talent went. So I know this is a long way to go to say that I am saying that everyone has talent, and if your talent leans toward storytelling and imagination and play, if I say to you, you don't have the talent as an adult, I mean that it got crushed. That what started to happen was those kids that showed talent in engineering and construction, whatever, they were encouraged. But many of us who showed talent for play and storytelling and imagination, a lot of parents were like, let's steer them toward business. Now, when I taught at Rutgers, every now and then I'd see a student and be like, hey, what's your major? And they would go, business. And I'd be like, what about business? And they'd go, business. Like they had no idea. And I'd be like, why are you studying business? And inevitably, my parents steered me that way. Now, here's the thing about that, and Adam would agree with me. That kid, when they're 40, it's going to come back and bite them on the ass. They're going to want to be an actor because they wanted to when they were 17, and their parents steered them toward business, right? So that's all I mean by that. And the part, I guess what I'm saying is that the stuff that you and I and everyone listening did, whatever we got in trouble for as kids, it's what we do for a living. So, I swear to God, when I was a kid, we had report cards and there were categories and they were all negative. And if there was a check next to it, then it was a negative thing you were doing. So to come home with how was your report card? Great, I don't have any checks. It meant that you were a good boy or a good girl and you didn't get in any trouble. I swear to you, one of the categories was talks unnecessarily. And every fucking semester I'd come home.
How many checks?
Talks unnecessarily. My mom, God bless her, she would just kind of look at it and be like, yeah, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
But I swore I'd be like, I don't think there was anything unnecessary about that talking that I did. I feel it was all necessary. But the teacher was like, no, you talk unnecessarily, meaning shut the fuck up and sit there and just listen to me, the teacher, talk.
Unnecessarily.
Right. So what happens is, of course, we may crush that God-given talent. But I do want to address the other thing that Adam says, which is if it's God-given, if you tell them it's God-given, then shouldn't they just rely on it? Like, how can you're the one who told them God gave it to them. So, of course, they're going to rely on it. I hope I was clear in the first episode that when this came up, but I'll say it again. I'm saying to my students, even if you believe in God and that God gave you that talent in and of itself is not acting. It's an art form. That's why the word form is in there. Art form. There's form to it. There's shape to it. And there is a technique behind it. So when I say to my students that you have God-given talent, I'm saying that's not such a big deal. There are plenty of people with that talent. In fact, when I taught at Rutgers, at the height of when I taught there, we had some unbelievable students. And I think this is true of any of those schools, Carnegie Mellon or Juilliard or UNCSA, SUNY New Paltz, Boston University, or any of these good BFA programs. At Rutgers, I would say to my students, dude, you can't turn around and spit without it landing on some talented person. Everyone around you is talented. So fucking what? You can't claim, you're not the owner of your talent. You're the manager of it. What are you going to do with it? So that's what I'm saying about talent. I wouldn't urge my students to go, well, it's God-given, and so all I have to do is ride that talent and rely on it. I would say to them, no, that's not enough, because talent in and of itself is not acting. You don't go on stage and say, ladies and gentlemen, I am very talented, so I'm just going to stand here and you all admire me and my talent. That's not what we're doing. We're wrangling our talent. We're shaping our talent in order to give the audience an experience through our storytelling. And hopefully they come out the other side of that because you had an understanding of how to wrangle your talent. And I don't know if that answers the first part of what Adam was saying, but I hope it does.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Okay.
The next question is also what we're speaking to,
Okay.
from an Instagram listener commenting on the same little snippet from episode 8. And they wrote, I will argue that there are some crazy talented actors out there with not a whole lot of professional training. Sometimes I do think training, as it's presented today, takes away something innate and creative that thinking can hinder. The idea of training is based a lot off of new forms. When there are new forms, we train in said form. But realism is so hyper-focused now that it can feel innate for a lot of us younger folks who grew up watching these talented actors who were trained by those form makers. I'm assuming people like Meisner and the direct lineage.
No, I think that's very interesting. I mean, you yourself said that Denzel Washington said the best actor you ever worked with was Al Fanning with it.
Yeah, Man on Fire.
Didn't he
Dakota, I don't know, one of the Fannings.
Yeah, one of the Fannings, Dakota or Al. But we're saying she was not trained. It's organic to her. I don't think Jodie Foster was ever trained in a technique. But when she was 12, she was in a movie with Harvey Keitel and Robert De Niro. You might pick something up. Right. Now, she's using her organic talent and understanding. I'm not saying you have to be trained in a technique. We just talked to Kayleen Cuoco, who said, jokingly, please don't ask me how I do what I do. I don't know how I do what I do. And I said to her, but you do. You have a plan. She said, I show up with a plan. And I worked with her and I saw how she worked. She does have a technique. It's not, some school saying, this is how to do what we do. Do it this way. So this writer, though, says something really interesting, which is sometimes training can undo organic talent. And that's not a false statement. If a teacher doesn't know what the hell they're doing, or there are too many teachers out there whose job is to keep their job. So they're like, I just teach.
It's a big thought.
Yeah. They're like, I teach because I teach acting, so you come and learn acting from me. Yeah, but what you're doing is either spinning your wheels or you're actually giving the student actor a negative habit. So wouldn't that student be better off not having trained? Yes, they're better off not training with that person. But I do think that I would caution this writer that I would just say, please make sure that you're not tricking yourself into saying, I have innate talent and the best way to not lose that talent is to not train. Because if I go train with somebody, they could undo it. I also have to call out the word thinking in there, right? What was that?
The specific sentence is, sometimes I do think training, as it's presented today, takes away something innate and creative that thinking can hinder.
Yeah. Nobody ever said that a technique is about thinking. Like, I would never use the word thinking. Like, I agree with that person. If there's something innate and creative in the student, why would you train them to think? So I'm not sure what this writer means by thinking, unless they mean script analysis, right? Which has to be done. But whether you sit down and think about script analysis is different.
Interesting, yeah.
Well, sometimes actors have said to me, my God, they're making me write an action for every single sentence of it. And you get in your head about the action, et cetera, et cetera. I understand that's a longer conversation for you and I to have. But you do have to think about your part, whether or not my colleague, Barbara Marchant, who I told you trained me in this, she's so important to my understanding of Meisner. She used to call it the 3 B's, the bed, the bath, and the bus. The actor does all their crafting in the shower or laying in bed or riding on the bus or the subway. You start to daydream. You start to say,
Absolutely.
is that thinking? No. But are you thinking about your part? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've been talking to Will actually a lot about Al Pacino's memoir. Right. And he writes in there a bunch. He kind of just refers to it throughout different points of his life. Like, and when I was working on Dog Day Afternoon, it was one of those afternoons where I wanted to think about the part. So I walked from West 95th down to the Village.
Yeah.
But then he'd say, and then when I was doing Godfather, I was on one of my walks. And so that's how he did it. And I love that he calls it just a walk. That's all it was. It just, he walked and thought about the part and how he was going to tackle it. And it is thinking.
Yes.
But it's not... there is a creativity to that version.
Yes.
Because sitting down with a pen and 5 highlighters that I do is very academic and can make you feel like you need to hit the right notes rather than.
Well, I would say if you are working that way, I would hope then you would put it aside. And
Yeah.
I did that work. I trust that it's in me. And the only thing left is for my partner to pull it out of me. But you do not go on stage to play your homework. You don't bring your homework on stage with you.
Right.
But do you think about your part? Al Pacino said, when I wanted to think about my part, I would take a walk, which means he consciously was like, I have to think about my part now. I'm not just going to show up and wing it. So honest to God, there's a reason we call this, it's not a Meisner pod. We're saying it is, well, it's not that. It is that, but it's also not. So that lets us say, I'm not here to say, you better study the Meisner technique or you can't be an actor. And I'm not even here to say, you better study some technique or you can't be an actor, because we've already seen in our discussion with Kelly Kwelkovich, she herself says, I try not to think about how I do what I do. And when she asked me jokingly, can you tell me what my process is? I said, no, I don't want to be the one that undoes something that you do organically well. And even though you don't articulate how you do it, you are doing something, right? I don't know if I've answered this person's question or not.
No, I think it's...
I think my concern would be that a young person would be like, I want to hold on to my innate creativity and imagination, so I'm not going to train. I think it depends on the teacher. And I swear to you, I agree with that writer, that you could get a teacher that could fuck you up. You're like, man, I was good until I worked with this person. They put me in my head and they made me think that acting is some academic thing. It's not, but you do have to do homework. I'm sorry, you do. Whether you take a walk, Al Pacino would walk the length of Manhattan.
Yeah.
And that would be him, quote unquote, thinking about the part. So, but that other thing, the last thing they say is we watch actors who studied with the people and then what are they saying though? By osmosis, we pick it up?
It can feel, well, there's a new form we train in that form, but realism is so hyper-focused now that it can feel innate for a lot of us younger folks who grew up watching these talented actors who were trained by the makers of said form.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's speaking to, I think, a few things, but I think specifically it's speaking maybe to the watered down nature of some of it, because you do go out and you're like, oh, I'd like to study Strasberg or Adler. And, you go to the bulletin boards around town and you see a bunch of stuff and it's just overwhelming. And like you said, people just want their job, which is totally fine. You have to live, you have to eat, but it can be, well, where am I getting, where's the lineage of my training?
Right.
What's the, not to sound pretentious, but is there a pedigree here? Like, does it come from the right place? And I think that's important to a young actor to know where they're getting it. Just to say, it's the same as like the food you put in your body, like Like, where's it coming from and how's it serving you?
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Okay.
Our next question is from Connor S. He says, "Hey, Carson and Kevin, I had a question for you that's not regarding technique. Aha. While the Meisner technique has been around for give or take 100 years, theater and performance had existed long before repetition and 4-year undergraduate programs or conservatories. How and where were techniques applied before their acknowledged inception? Were actors of the past excellent observers who could replicate life and, quote, pretend the best? Or is too much credit given to actors and performers of the past that today's audiences would deem them unwatchable? Regardless, I would love to hear both of your opinions on what actors that predated popular techniques did to prepare and perform, as it may lend useful to those who feel constricted by all the tenets of one singular technique."
That's a really good question. There's a lot in that question. Yes, I don't think that any actor should be restricted by the tenets, say, on a particular technique. Honest to God, I tell my own students, now that you've done this training, when you get out in the world, you keep what works for you, you throw away what doesn't. I had people that studied with me 20 years ago and will be like, oh, I never did that thing that you taught me. I don't use that one. But that other one, I rely on that. It's great. Or someone will say, oh, I did study Meisner, but I also studied clown. Well, that's you. Or I studied Michael Chekhov or whatever. And so, Will brings up the Laban technique, all of this stuff. It makes the actor well-rounded. But this question is about the history of acting training, which is not easy to respond to because there's training across the globe. Like Japanese know.
Yeah.
Acting is completely different. The Beijing Opera, Suzuki, or Buto, or Western training.
It responds to the demands of the writers, right?
Well,
and the audience.
Is this mic picking you up?
Yeah,
Will?
I think.
Cool. Yes, it isn't. It is a response to the demands of the writer or the overall play itself. And the best actors are the ones that can adjust to it. But in terms of what was training before, say, Stanislavski, right? A Western realism. It was, going back to the Greeks, they wore masks, and the masks were designed to, project the voice, but also demonstrate a particular essential, the essence of the character. Were those good actors? We can't know, but it also almost doesn't matter because the stories were so strong, and the reasons they were being told, it almost didn't need a great nuanced performance. But there must have been something about those people because they were the ones doing the performing, not somebody else. Somebody else was sitting in the third row,
Yeah.
I do think we tend to think that Shakespeare, back in Shakespeare's time, they were hammy actors, hamming it all up. But Shakespeare gives advice to the players: do not saw the air, thus match the word to the action of the action. It sounds like
Speak the speech, I pray you.
Speak the speech, I pray you, as I pronounced it to you.
Right.
And it's like he's saying, listen, don't schmacked it up over here, right? Schmacting is a great word. I was in the drama bookshop once, and there was a sign on the wall that said, no schmacting in the aisles, which meant clearly if you worked at drama bookshop, you spent all day listening to terrible actors pulling books off the shelves and acting them in the aisle, and they called it schmacting. Please, no schmacting, right? But I think we tend to think that, in the Renaissance or just in Shakespeare, Elizabethan and Shakespeare's time, you had to be all flowery and plummy in your vocals and blah, blah, blah. But it sounds like Shakespeare's going, just line up what you're saying and say it clearly and simply, and the truth of it will come through.
Yeah.
But in modern time, we can point directly to Duza, I think, and Salvini. I want to say that Salvini came before Duza, but I'm not sure. What we're saying is that there were actors who organically, and Shepkin, I think is the name, the Russian guy, Shepkin,
Tommaso Salvini
was an Italian actor.
Yeah.
But Shepkin, look that up. Am I saying that right? What happens, ladies and gentlemen, you get so old that you don't remember what you...
Mikhail Shepkin, 1788 to 1863, considered the father of realist acting in Russia.
Wow.
Via the influence of his student Fedotova, a major influence on the development of the system by Stanislavski, who was born the year he died.
Wow. So here's Stanislavski, who is looking at those who came before him. They behaved truthfully under imaginary circumstances, right? But I don't know if they codified it. And I think Duza, who again, I think we referenced that there's a book about her called The Mystic in the Theater, meaning that she herself would say, I am not the one. I am the channel through which it flows. She called it, the Holy Spirit. I go on stage and the Holy Spirit flows through me and back out again. Yeah. So she didn't take any credit for her own brilliance and genius, But I think she just organically did it. We can say that at the same time that Duza was working, there was Sarah Bernhardt. And Sarah Bernhardt was a celebrity, like a famous celebrity. And so whoever that would be today, she would have been a Kardashian or something, her she's known for being known, but also she was an actor. But she was known for being a very presentational actor with the gestures and the voice and all this, and very sort of self-conscious, whatever. And Duza, working at the same time, did not do that stuff. And there would be a bit of a rivalry, about which one was better. What's interesting is that there is silent film of both of them. And when you look at Bernhardt, you go, holy shit. She's just she's throwing it out there, right? But I got to tell you, when you look at Duza, it ain't all that naturalistic either. Mm-hmm. It's just better than Bernhardt. Right. So you go, well, I can see what she's doing, but maybe because it was on film. So there's a little bit of that eye stuff and the hands and all that, But Duza was considered that somebody who did this without the technique that we consider that came down from Stanislavski. So I think the way that actors did it in the past, at least in one grouping anyway, for instance, Elizabethan, was you were an apprentice actor and you just learned the gestures and vocal techniques of the person doing the part. Mm-hmm. Then you went on and mimicked their part entirely, Yeah. Now, this is a wonderfully, probably apocryphal story that the term understudy comes from, that the actor literally was under the clothing. Like the woman would wear a big dress on stage. Literally under that big dress was the younger actor who was learning the part. That can't be true. I want it to be true so bad.
It would be awesome if it was.
Awesome. But the idea of understudy is that you were underneath literally the actor, But you basically were just mimic it. You would watch their performance and then mimic it. So there's not much room there for your own self-expression or creativity, really. So it's so I don't know if that was a long way to go to Grandma's house to find she is at home. But I hope that answers the question. That there have always been people who have had a technique that wasn't necessarily codified.
Yeah, for sure. The next question is from Gary T. And Gary writes, "Hi, I did a 2-year Meisner program decades ago, and I'm a bit rusty on it. Since then, I have studied various other techniques. I am currently auditioning, self-taping, mostly for film, TV, and commercials. And one thing I wonder about is the application of the reality of doing and the independent activity to TV and film acting, self-taping, and especially the close-up shot. It seems to me that a lot of times as an actor, you don't have any business or props or anything to focus on other than the other actor, making it difficult to have an activity, doing, or business. Also, I've heard it said that the close-up shot is the essence of film, TV acting, and it seems like close-up shots often don't allow for an activity, business, doing, unless you define doing as an objective. Please clarify all of this and the place of the reality of doing and the independent activity in self-tapes, close-up shots, and film and TV acting in general.
I'm so happy for that question because I'm afraid I left that hanging a little bit. When we have focused on activity, that's first year Meisner. And the value of activity is to be doing. But no, of course you don't, more often than not, probably don't get an opportunity to have an activity. I would say to everybody listening, to watch a film or watch a movie or maybe even watch a sitcom or whatever, and see how the actors do manage to have objects at the very least, even if they're not doing anything with it. Right? Isn't there that famous thing that Brad Pitt is like always eating?
Yeah.
He always finds a way to eat something or whatever. It's very endearing, but it grounds you in something. So if I would tell everybody out there to watch movies and television and see how the actors do manage to get their hands on something and to be doing. The most famous version of this is on the waterfront. Eva Marie Saint is walking with Marlon Brando and she drops her glove. And he picks it up and she kind of puts her hand out, fully expecting him to give it back to her, and he holds onto it. And he puts his hand in her glove. And it's a dainty little glove for a woman, and he puts his big meaty paw in there because he's a fighter for a living. And he just gets his paw in there, his hand in there, and he's just kind of, I'm like, did that happen spontaneously? I want it to have happened spontaneously, maybe in a rehearsal or take one or take two, and then they left it in.
Yeah.
And she's good enough then to drop the fucking glove,
Right.
quote unquote, accidentally, and for him to pick up, so that they're both so well trained that they're experiencing it like it's for the first time. Or maybe the take we're looking at, she generally dropped it and he picked it up. There's ways to get your hands on things, but this is a really good question because what the hell? You don't always have an opportunity for a full activity. In that case, I would say if it can't be an activity, can it at least be an object? I think, if I'm remembering correctly, Deirdre Friel, who we've mentioned before, Deirdre, if I'm wrong, get back to us. I think she was shooting an episode of The Sopranos once, years ago, and she contacted me and said, I need to be alive with a certain something, but I don't have a chance, what do I do here? And I said to her, well, can you sneak a handheld, the tiniest object in the world, into the pants pocket of your costume or even just in your hand? Because there's an association with it. So all you really need to do is make contact with an object. And if you associate that object, if you personalize it or associate it. And I think later after shooting it, Deirdre got back to me and said that she did it and it worked. Now, Deirdre may write to us and say, what the fuck are you talking about? That never happened.
She'll be on. She'll be on. But
she'll be on this podcast eventually and she'll clear the air.
Yeah.
But my point is, I do think you can manage to sneak an object, or the best thing you can do when all else fails, and sometimes the best thing to do overall, imagination. You can use your imagination that now listen, this gets us into Michael Chekhov a little bit, which may or may not be fair. But this concept of a life body, that there is a body beyond your corporeal, that you can radiate energy beyond your corporeal body, and that there is a body that sort of lives just under the skin of your actual corporeal body. And that life body can do the things that you can't do. It can fly. It can whatever. So if you're in a close-up, your life body can be doing any number of activities, and it will translate to external behavior, right? Imagistically, I do this example with my students quite a bit. Give yourself the image of something. Like I'll say to them, there's a net filled with cinder blocks 3 feet over your head, and it's tied up and held by a very thin rope. Well, no one sees it. And you don't act like it's there. You just give yourself the image of it, and it starts to affect your behavior.
Yeah.
And if it's in a close-up, So, but the last thing I will say, first of all, this is a great question because here we are talking about Meisner's activity and the value of it. The real value of it is, well, there's multiple values. One value is in script analysis, because when you craft an activity, everything you need to craft it is also how you might work on a play or a scene in a play. All those elements are in a scene in a play. So it gets you, it's a great way to exercise the elements of, like, I read a script and a scene and a script, and where do I start and how do I take it apart? Crafting of an activity covers all that. But the other thing it does is it puts the focus on doing. And the last thing I think this writer said was, unless you mean objective, which we do, right? Now, this is important also. You can't, I actually caught myself saying this once on one of our episodes. I said, you play your objective. You can't play an objective. I don't even know why I said that. In fact, I think I might have been drunk. That was the one episode where I was loaded. When I think back on it.
Yeah.
Yes. I should say now that I haven't had a drop of alcohol since I was 23 years old. So for those of you who want to cancel me. But I did say that, and I don't know why. This came out. But you can't play an objective. You play an action in order to get an objective, right? So in answer to this writer, I would say, yes, if it's close-up or whatever, activity is not activity, it's action, it's doing. What are you doing to, for, and off that person in an effort to get something back? So when we say always be doing, we don't really literally mean activity, unless you can. I got a feeling if you go back and look at movies of actors that you really like, you might find that 3/4 of the scenes they're in the entire film, you go, look at that, son of a bitch, they managed to pick something up and just handle it in some way or be trying to accomplish something. But regardless of activity, we really do mean, when we say always be doing, we mean action. To, for, and off your partner. I want Carson to get up and shut the window. So I hint. It's cold in here, isn't it? Be great if Grinda were cold. I'm hinting to get him to do it. I'm doing an action, right? And if it were a close-up, that I would read that I'm like trying to get something from him without straight up saying it, right? But if I get fed up with Carson for not picking up, I might give him a directive. Will you shut the fucking window? Yeah. I just straight up give him a directive, All of it is so he'll go shut the window. My objective is for him to shut the window. No, my objective probably is to be comfortable in this room.
Yeah.
And I also am old and I don't feel like getting up off my ass. Carson, you're young. Go shut the window. Okay. I hope that's clear.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think a lot of techniques speak to that, specifically like Uta Hagen. And she has those great object exercise.
Oh, yes.
I would look into those. Yes. Because they're just
well, the lost object, right?
Yeah, the lost object.
You come home and you can't find something of value, and you're, basically what you're doing in the time that you're up there is going through your domestic space, your bedroom or your living room, and you're looking for this object. And
right.
You really look for it, and it grounds you, and it causes internal experience and external behavior.
Yeah. Well, and she goes on about the fourth wall, which I think we joked about earlier, but I think her point on the fourth wall is actually in service to what we were saying about you can't cut off the audience. So she's saying have the fourth wall there that you would take in just as you would the other three, instead of pretending like nothing's right
there at all. You look at the fourth. Like sometimes when I'm directing a play, I'll ask the designer, I'll say to them, can you give me a downstage magnet? Something that will draw the actors to it, because they tend to stay away from downstage.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'll put like a window seat on the fourth wall, and we'll say there's a window there. So the actor will sit and look out the window that is on the imaginary fourth wall,
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Okay, so our last three to close out season 1. All right, here we go. Do you want me to read all these back to back?
Yeah, I think they all cover the same thing. If you feel they're too long, then maybe you can self-edit, but if you want to read them all through.
They're all right. Let's go for it. So the first one is from Connor G. He writes, "Hello, Kevin and Carson. I'm a Meisner trained actor teaching at a performing arts high school where I've started a 10-week Meisner unit with my advanced students. I'd love to hear your thoughts on working with teenagers. Do you approach the work any differently than you would adults? I'm especially curious about the repetition exercise, balancing honesty with sensitivity, and how you help teens feel brave to take artistic risks." The next question under this same umbrella is from Jordan F. in Kansas. He writes, "Hi, Kevin and Carson. I'm a high school theater teacher with limited formal Meisner training. I was really inspired by Bill Esper's books a couple of years ago and have been incorporating a Meisner unit in my advanced acting class. Our work includes repetition, activities, entrances, expectations. It has been so fun to see my students develop their abilities to be present in the moment and get out of their own heads. However, the biggest barrier in their work is being able to fully allow their partner's words and actions affect them. There isn't always a proportional ouch to the pinch. I'm well aware that I'm squeezing what should be years of training into a few weeks, but I'm hoping you could provide some advice or exercises to help my students stop being polite or safe and truly take to heart what their partner is doing to them." The final question is from Rhett. Rhett says, "Knowing how long Kevin has been teaching this technique and the shifting societal trends, technology aside, is there something Kevin has encountered with the current generation as opposed to previous ones that makes teaching the technique more difficult? If so, can he articulate what that is? And to that, if he could wave a magic wand and eradicate one thing from contemporary society in the hopes of preserving artistic integrity, what would it be?"
Oh, boy. So, all three of those are essentially in the same ballpark. People who listen to this podcast and know me, they may think over these over these 16 episodes that I've actually been pretty contained. I can go off, and I have not done that in our first season. Carson's job is to keep me on track. But when you get me talking about certain things, I can go deep. I could do a very deep dive in it, and I can get very passionate about it. And this is one of those categories. So this section may be called Kittle Unleashed, because I'm about to go. First of all, again, that we have acting. I really appreciate these acting teachers, but I have to tell you, they're not alone. Every teacher I talk to, colleagues of mine, former colleagues, because I have retired, but they have not, say things to me like, "I cannot speak in the classroom without somebody pushing back on how I'm being, how I'm triggering them, and they're being, and I'm being insensitive, and they're offended, and et cetera, et cetera."
My dad teaches acting, and he says it's the same thing. He's like, "I don't run the classroom anymore, and the school doesn't let me."
Will's father says, "I don't run the classroom anymore, and the school won't let me." This drives me fucking crazy. I am not addressing right now, I realize, the first two, and I will, I promise. I'm addressing the third one. The wand I would wave is, what the fuck ever happened to standards? It's like we're not allowed to have high standards anymore for students. You're not allowed to tell them what the standard is, and that we're going to, we're with you the whole way and we're supporting you, but we're also pushing you to reach just slightly above your capacity. I'm not going to set the bar at your eye level, and I'm sure as hell not going to set it lower. I set it just slightly above your capacity. So you have to reach for it. What does that mean? You might fucking fail. Well, apparently we're not allowed to fail anymore either. So every kid gets a star, a gold star. Every kid gets a trophy, the old participation trophy. A kid would be like, I got a trophy. I came in 5th. I'm like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I was the first person to come in 5th. You mean you lost? one of the associate artistic director of our theater company, the 1-1 project, Katrina, says to me, young people in this country, they need to learn how to be defeated. You have to,
Interesting, yeah.
you have to learn how to, you have to be defeated, and you have to know how to accept defeat and you grow when you're defeated. So I get a little nuts now, but something weird has happened. This is a bigger, this isn't an acting situation. This is a sociological experiment where we are not allowed to hold acting students to a standard anymore. You have to pat them on the head and tell them they're doing great. And that one writer says, I know I'm squeezing an entire, technique of acting into a couple of weeks. Well, listen, man, Will back me up here. When I used to teach at this wonderful organization called ArtsBridge, it was a 2-week program. I only had 2 weeks, and I would crack those actors after the first day. And again, I know how that sounds. The letters are going to be like, you're cracking the actors. No, I'm addressing that to them what's going on societally. One time when I met with a group of these 15, 16, 17-year-olds on the very first night, I went off on what's happening here. And when I was done, I said to them, I guess you all want to kill me now, huh? And one kid said, no, we want to applaud you. Which means they fucking know. And also, every one of those students in front of me, they were at an arts summer program, which means they sought it out, which means they want that training that's tough on them. They don't want to be coddled. They want to be given the tough notes. That's why they're all there. So when they all looked around the room, they were like, oh, every one of us is the one at our individual school around the country that wants this training. So I used to say to them, you're tougher than you think you are. But now I say to them, you're tougher than they told you are. Because I don't think they think that they're not tough. I think they've been told they're not tough. And everybody goes running toward everybody. Are you all right? Now, that same group, when I told them this, I said, look, you guys, I'm not going to coddle you. I'm going to be clear in my notes, and I'm going to be tough. I'm not going to be harsh, and I'm not going to be cruel, and I'm on your side, and I'm going to go through it with you every step of the way, We'll talk it through. We'll do it again. Let's just say right now that failing is, we're almost leaning toward it. We're setting ourselves up almost to be like, this is so hard that we might fail at it.
Right.
Well, that same group, I did an exercise with them where I take all the chairs and we put them in a circle. So there's 30 kids sitting in chairs, like a musical chairs kind of thing. And I would say to them, when I clap my hands, every one of you get up and go and sit in the chair to your right. So it's a great exercise, and they have to all work together. Otherwise, you're going to be sitting on the lap of the person next to you if they didn't get up, So they got very good at it. Like, just all of them were in sync and in what we call the unified field, and they were working beautifully. Then I said to them, now everybody stay awake because I'm going to change something. And when I clapped my hands, I pulled one of the chairs out of the circle. And the girl who was moving to her right fell right on her ass. Now, I was behind her and I sort of caught her, but she fell on her ass. Every single kid jumped up and ran to her, and they're like, oh, are you okay? They all want to take care of each other so much. I said to them, you guys, we just had this conversation, and you all just did it. You ran up to make sure she was okay. Meanwhile, I said to the girl, I can't remember her name, but I said, you okay? She said, yeah. So I fell 2 feet. I said, all right, is anything hurt? She said, only my ego. That was brilliant. And then I said to her, I can't remember her name, God bless her. I said, you're my hero. You're my new hero. Because you fell, literally. And the only thing that happened was you experienced feeling embarrassed. But everybody, I said to the rest of them, you all just broke form. You broke the form of you were working beautifully in a unified field. And the second one of you did something that isn't that thing, you go, oh no, it's a disaster and a mess, and you all run. Are you okay? Meanwhile, she was perfectly fine.
And if she wasn't, you would have stopped everything and made sure she got help if she really was hurt.
If she was really hurt, first of all, I would never let her be hurt. I'm the one who pulled the chair, but I pulled the chair of the girl who was about to sit in it. I held her by the back and kind of let her down. But you're right. If anybody, like if somebody's doing activity, this I've done. Somebody's doing an activity, they're in their bare feet, and then a bottle drops and breaks. I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
They want to keep going. They're like, no, I'm okay. I'm like, stop.
Yeah.
Step back. We're not only going to sweep, we're going to sweep 5 times because a tiny little bit of cleft could get your foot. So, of course, if you are unsafe, we're going to stop. But what happens is young people say to me, I feel unsafe. And I say to them, you are not unsafe. You are uncomfortable. You got to learn the difference. Because they've got their trigger warnings and all this. Don't get me started on that shit. You go to the theater, and before you go in, there's a sign outside telling you that everything's going to happen in the play. If you step in here, there will be a gunshot, and there will be nudity, and there will be, and there are certain words, and
You're denying yourself the cycle of life. Like the most important theater is here so that we cry, so that we do get triggered. We do have an experience. Having an experience and getting to the other side is like the same thing with like the rain. It has to rain, and then tomorrow it comes. I think what's going on is people step back and say, no, I don't want to go through something uncomfortable because it's uncomfortable. And, they have the choice nowadays to not go through with that. So you're actually denying yourself the cycle of life and growing that way.
Could you imagine that? I know that our regular listeners know that is Will, who is a great actor. He's our sound person on this, but really he's an actor, a great actor. But could you imagine back in the day? Do you remember in one of our episodes I said in ancient Greece it was a civic responsibility to go to the theater? Could you imagine back then if you went like, oh, I would feel, I don't want to go, I'd feel triggered.
Yeah.
But the reason you went was to experience what they call catharsis, which is you live something out and you come out the other side. Now, people will say these days, people say, I don't want to go to the theater because I'll feel triggered. By definition, that's what the theater does. It triggers you. It puts you in a place where you have to confront something. And then if you stay with it, you come out the other side. But people go, I left at intermission because I was triggered. Oh, so you didn't stay for the part where you lived through it and come out the other side.
Yeah.
Now, I understand that there are people who genuinely have a kind of trauma, and it might not a particular trauma, and it might not be the best idea to go see that play at that time. I get that. But some people are running around with a trauma that isn't. There are genuine people with PTSD, like genuinely, or have a PTSD because of some trauma. And then there are people who are just like, they have some kind of lame reason for having to leave the room. I won't let my students leave the room. And then the administration comes in and goes, did you make that kid stay in the room? Yeah. Oh, no, you have to let them go out and have their quiet time. Like, no, we solve everything in the room. When you leave, you're out there unsupervised. I want you to live it out in the room. Maybe you go sit over there, but stay in the room. You don't leave the room. I can't tell you how many students I've had who on the first day had some sort of incident, and then when I call them on it, the next day and for the rest of their training, it never came up again. One time I had class on the first day, literally the first day. Everyone was there. We did our work. Second day, a student wasn't there. Third day, I go, where were you? And she said, I needed a personal day. I took a personal day. And I said, that's not a thing. And she never missed a class for 4 years after that.
Wow.
Which means she didn't need to miss that one.
No.
And when I say she didn't miss a class, I don't mean just my class. She didn't miss anybody else's classes. Voice, speech, movement, perfect attendance. I'm like, she didn't need to miss that second day. All right. I don't know if any of this is addressing what
It's speaking to everything.
Well, I think I can help those two teachers. Here's what's happening. One of them uses the word bold or brave or something like that.
Brave, yeah.
Yeah. Here's the thing. They all want a safe space. Tell them this is not a safe space. This is a brave space. It's a place to be brave. What's happening is this. They are all so concerned with not oppressing someone else that they repress themselves and they suppress themselves.
Huge thought.
Huge. They're like, I don't want to offend anybody. I want to be an ally or whatever, which is completely, by the way, I got to say, I think this generation, this younger generation, I think they're the ones that are really going to do it. Like everything that my generation thought, peace and love and all that shit, look what happened. Reagan got elected in the 80s. And we're like, we had our thoughts about peace and love and Woodstock and all that shit. I really look at these younger people and I go, no, you guys got it. You guys really mean it. They are the most empathic generation. They are the most allowing generation. They allow for so many people, for people to be who they are. You know, they're so accepting. I love to see it. I love it. I just don't want them to make the mistake of, I am so concerned about hurting somebody else that I control my own. They're afraid to respond impulsively in the moment because they may say something that will, here it comes, get them canceled. And that's what's happening right now. I have students in my acting class who are worried about what's going to happen on the Instagram later. So first of all, what happens in our acting class stays in our acting. Who the fuck is going out and telling the world about what happened in acting class? These students are being very brave and they're revealing things that have personal meaning to them. Somebody's going out and writing some Instagram feed about it. So-and-so said this today. It's got to be a brave space and it's got to be a trusting. You got to go, this is a space where I trust everyone in it and I'm going to release how I really feel. So for these teachers who are going, yeah, I've got the young people standing across from each other. Maybe they're technically good at repetition, but I cannot get them to respond to how they're really being treated. I would say it goes beyond repetition. I would do a ton of movement work with them where they're all just traveling in this space and across from each other. Because when you go up to do repetition, you're up there alone, you and the other person. It feels like you're on stage or something.
Yeah.
You know? So if everybody's up and moving and working off each other, then we feel like we're all doing it. And what I would do is have them move and move and move. And then I would say, when I clap my hands, whoever is next to you is your partner. So you just stop and turn, and Carson and I are next to each other. And you take that person in, and that's it. And then you move on. But then to use some Michael Chekhov, I would say, as you walk, if you continue to walk this space, I want you imagistically to flower your heart open. Flower your heart open. Now you're walking around with an open heart, and then you go, okay, stop, I turn. Will and I are partners. I'm taking Will in through an open heart. I'm going to be like, holy shit, right? Now again, you can't act like you have a flowered open heart. It's imagistic. I don't want you walking around acting like it. I'm saying, no. Flower your heart open. Just like when I say walk around as if there's cinder blocks over your head. Don't look up at them and act all scared. I'm not saying act like, I'm saying the image of it. And it starts to work on you internally, right? So I do think you have to get your actors up and moving too far and off each other before repetition, right? The other thing is this. I have my students on the first day write a list. I'll say, make a list. Things I love, things I hate. Now that's very general, but it starts there. Things I love, things I hate. And be honest and truthful. So you make a nice list. Then you look at that list and you go, things I love, ice cream, fine. But it's not sustainable. It's not, right. You can craft a moment from that, but not a circumstance.
Right.
But then you get down, this always happens, 5th or 6th on the list, my grandma. I'm like, after ice cream, was your grandma? Because they don't think about it. Or they'll go, my family. And then I'm like, that's still pretty fucking general. Who in your family? My grandma. Okay, now you're getting there. So things I love and things I hate. And then they'll say like, well, I only had 2 things that I hate. Why is that? Well, hate is a very strong word. So they're being polite, they're being social.
Yeah.
Hate is a very strong word. And I'll be like, yeah, it is. Get the hell in there and write things you hate. Right? Then the next step is now, what are the offshoots of that? Things that I hate. Well, things that, I don't know, things that piss me off, things that make me jealous, things that hurt my feelings, things that make whatever. Things I love, things that fill me with joy, things that turn me on sexually, things about that sexual thing is depending on the age of the students you work with. But you know what I mean? So they are taking their own inventory of what has meaning to them, but they're also saying it out loud to you, the teacher, so you know. That way, when you're watching them, you can coach and go, hey, I thought you hated blah, blah, blah. They're treating you exactly like that thing, right? The last thing that I'll say, and then we'll wrap this up, is that at the end of our podcast here, you have heard us mention the 1-1 project quite a bit. The 1-1 project is this to begin with, and I'm telling you teachers, you can do it. You have your two students up there repeating too far and off each other. Your job is to feed them the moment. Now, when I feed my students the moment, I will say to them, usually it's a question. I'll go, Carson, what's the moment here? And he'll say, Will's pissing me off. And I'll be like, okay. So then Carson will go, Will, you're pissing me off. Great. So I'll ask us a question. What's going on? What's the moment? But we've got it to the point now where I realize that these young actors are in such a place where they cannot, either they cannot identify how they feel, or if they know how they feel, they cannot say it out loud because they're afraid their point of view is going to be offensive to somebody and they'll get canceled. So here's what you do. Add a third person to repetition. You, the teacher, are the third person. You say exactly the wording that one of them should say. So I would say, Carson, you are pissing me off. So then Carson says to Will, you are pissing me off. I fed Carson what to say to Will. Then when I've done this with my students, when it's over, they look at me and they go like, holy shit, I said that out loud. And when I said it, I really meant it. I didn't know I was sitting on being pissed off. But when you made me, I said it because you said. They also get to go, I didn't say that. I said it because the teacher told you to say it. I get to own it, but I didn't say it. I said what they told me to say, right? The last thing I'll say, the next step then is to make that third person in the repetition another student. So if Will and Carson are working and I'm also a student, I have to feed Will what he's feeling, but I'm also a student. So I'm like, hey, I know what Will is feeling. But when I'm up there, I don't say it. But when it's Will, I say to Will, tell Carson that you think he's really hot right now. You're attracted to him. You would never say it. If the two of you are doing repetition and you were somehow really caught up in Carson and thought he was attractive, you would never go, you're turning me on right now. You're really attractive. But if I say, Will, you're really attractive, then Will has to look at Carson and go, you're really attractive. Oh, shit, I said it out loud. But you can say it because somebody else told you to say it.
Right. It's good because with high schoolers, it's tough. I went to an arts high school where we did do some Meisner. It's tough because you're in biology next period with everybody. Right. You're at the party on Friday. Right. So to say that in the room has consequences outside, whereas conservatory, it's like, nah, we're here to hopefully.
Well, then I would say to those high school teachers, just be aware of that and know that what happens in the acting room is the acting room. You can now go to biology. You don't go, oh, that was something. I didn't know you were attracted to me. I'm not in that moment.
Yeah.
It was the moment. I mean, if we did a play and we did Romeo and Juliet, I'm not really attracted to you, dude. It's just you or Juliet in the play. It's in the play. It's just so when we're across from each other. My point is, you feed it in. You feed to the student, but you don't tell them how they're feeling. You give them the literal language.
Yep.
Carson, you're reminding me of my mom right now. You're not my fucking mom, Will. And then Carson has to say, Will, you're not my fucking mom. He has to say those words. Yeah. Okay. But also I would I would stress strongly that after you model that, make another student be the third person.
Yeah.
Because what you are the unconscious. You are the conscious/unconscious of the person up there. So when you say, Carson, you're not my mom, unconsciously you're saying out loud something about your mom and how she treats you, and Will's acting that way. But I told you to say it, so great. But if the third person is a student, they're practicing themselves. I see what the moment is up there when the two of them are doing it.
Yeah.
Then when you get up there, hopefully you got a little bit more practice on, well, what's the experience I'm having and how do I name it?
Yeah.
All right. So I have no idea if any of that is of any value, but I want people to write to us.
Yeah.
On this hiatus. Teachers, please write to us if you have any feedback or any questions. I will say this. I have Zoomed with 2 people since we've been doing this. 2 different people have written to Carson and I, and their questions and comments were so complex that I was like, we can't write this back.
Yeah.
So Carson, God bless him, because I don't know how, he would contact them and say, Kevin's going to send a Zoom link, and the 3 of us will get on, and we'll talk this through. We've done it with 2 different people.
Should release that audio.
Yeah. I don't know.
I would need a bonus.
Yeah.
I don't think we recorded it.
No.
But I'm just saying.
Yeah, reach out. Meisner Podcast at gmail.com.
The end.
See you in season 2.
Bye all.